Well, it's my full name is actually Raffaele-Antonio. My first name is Ralph Anthony, like that. So it was long. It's as a kid they started calling me Ra actually because when they would see it at school, it'd be R period A period Castaldo, and they would be like, Ra, what is this? And then it fit because I was into ancient writings, ancient Egyptian, so it's kind of stuck. When I was in high school, people started calling me that as a nickname, so it kind of stuck.
So, what brings you into the connection with Maria Wheatley? The thing that we've just done with her is a secret history of Stonehenge.
Yeah, well, we have both been researching megalithic sites for many, many years. We both do dowsing, and we kind of found each other within the community about 10, 15 years ago. And we found we both are hereditary too, because she's like a second generation dowser. But my family goes back many, many generations back to ancient Italy with being mystics, healers, shaman, things like that. So
This is
we kind
right
of
up my street. This is really what we want to get into. So, I think it would be good if you sort of explained all that. If you want to share anything or tell us, we're in record. And
yeah.
I would like to find out as much as you want to say about the whole background and how you're in with Maria. Maria Wheatley is wonderful, but what about you? I want to find out all about you, and because I have a connection with Egypt going back a long time, and I had a very good French girlfriend who is very, very good in remote viewing and also the whole Egyptian thing.
This is what I do,
And
yeah.
there's lots of stuff they haven't told us. So take it away, Ralph.
Well, yeah, well, I'll give you a background on myself first, but just piggybacking of what you were saying is most of my research is based upon ancient writings and the patterns and how it has basically advanced plasma physics and bacterial genetics within the ancient writings. It's not primitive death worship. It's very advanced symbolism. And you see, Miles, in the ancient times, spirituality and science, they were fused together.
Yes.
They were not kept separate. You
Yeah.
know, if someone was an adept or spiritual initiate, he was an astrologer, he was a surgeon, he was a psychic, he was a shaman, he was a warrior. And all of these go back to ancient Egyptian, all the ancient cultures that we feel are some of the most ancient on our planet actually go back to ancient Vedic. So when you have ancient Egyptian, ancient Persian, Chaldean, Assyrian, the Mitanni, the Hittites, all these ancient cultures all over the world, even the Chinese, Japanese, they actually stem from ancient knowledge that came from the Asura and the Deva clans of ancient Vedic. And there was a war over knowledge the adepts had. The ancient Vedic wars were literally over the knowledge and information and powers they were harnessing from the stars, from the suns. And when you get into the ancient Vedics, the Asura and the Deva clans, they were spiritual initiates and adepts that went to war. And from the break, you had not an Aryan invasion, but an Aryan division of these ancient cultures that spread out all over the world. And then what you see as Osiris in Egypt was the Asar of the Asura clans.
Now
When you see Assyria,
let's get a time base. Are we talking pre-flood?
yes,
We're talking 10,000,
Vedic
12,000 years before that. We're talking
ancient
12,000
Vedic
BC.
was, yeah, I think ancient Vedic was pre-flood, and then the post-flood civilizations that you see emerging, Persians, Egyptians, all of these have to do with the knowledge that was left over from the ancient Vedic cultures that re-emerged.
Now, are we talking the Atlantis era, or are we?
Yeah, I mean those are very sexy words that we use, Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria, but I
But
do
those
think
are
that
those are some people are saying that Atlantis is not a physical location. It was a time. It was like a period.
yes, it's a Vedic, most likely the Vedic, Vedic clans. They were all over the world, and that's what we have the oldest knowledge of are the Asura and the Devas. And these were, when most of the warfare that they were doing was of mantric, of mantras, of psychic warfare, telepathic warfare, spiritual warfare. Nowadays we're using manufactured materials to make war and technology. That's a replication of what we should be working with. In the past, they were using natural elements to harness and fuse cosmic and psionic energies for warfare.
Now
Now
you're
we're using
talking psionic. That's the application of a technology with psychic warfare. Is that right?
yes,
Psi
yes.
energies.
It's with mantras and sounds and
Yes,
vibrations that can
acoustic.
literally shatter.
Some would say scalar or longitudinal wave technology.
There's all sorts of words, orgone, like we have orgone pyramids, orgone powers, but it's more of the telepathic energies that's connected to the cosmic, which ultimately is the plasma solar wind network that we have swirling around the cosmos. Basically, when they talk about these fancy words like akasha and all of these akashic records and all this, basically what, if you want to put it in a scientific term, because in the past, like I said, spirituality and science was fused together. The akashic network to me is the solar wind plasma network of particles and information that we have swirling all around the cosmos.
Which is really important in today because we're entering such a dense amount of that material. Would you suggest that connects with the Birkeland currents, or if I say Birkeland currents, is that some energy field that we ride like on a wave at different
Yeah, well,
intensities?
yeah, I mean, we'll tone it back in a minute and get to my past and stuff. But let's roll with this for a minute because the old way we look at stars and suns is archaic. Our sun in our solar system is taught to us in school as a hydrogen gas sphere, right? It's actually so hot that it's plasma. It's a plasma sphere, a plasma star. So 99.99% of the mass of the universe is plasma. When you see nebulas, that's a huge river of plasma, a boat of plasma. Like in the ancient Egyptians, you see come up all the time a boat of millions of years, right? You see that temples of million. Well, what they're referring to, in my opinion, is when you see a nebula, that's literally a millions of light years of plasma. It's a boat of millions of years. Plasma is measured on a galactic scale in millions of light years. So when you see a huge nebula, that's a huge boat of plasma. It is a boat of millions of years. It's the lifeblood of our universe, plasma. It's interconnecting galaxies, nebulas, stars, and everything that's swirling around coming from suns and stars has all the knowledge of supernova explosions, of past lives. Everything that's ever existed is imprinted and swirling around in the cosmos. And then we have a region around all planets that have life called a magnetosphere. That magnetosphere is a very, very important place, and it has to do with the afterlife in almost every ancient culture that they talk about. In ancient Egyptian, they talk about the Amtuat, where you have to enter into this region where you can create yourself from yourself. So I literally, through my research and from my experiences, I've realized that after death, you have specific instructions in these ancient religions to enter into that duat, into the magnetosphere, into this swirling region of plasma, where you can attract particles from all over the solar wind network and create what your soul calls itself to be, the Kepra, you know? So this is advanced plasma physics, and they give specific instructions to these solar kings. Remind you, all these Vedic cultures, all these, even going down to Egyptian, these are solar dynasties. These are solar kings. These are
Well,
ones that are
it's very
harnessing
interesting
solar
that
and
head of
cosmic energy.
NASA, the German so-called paperclip people, the key man in charge of the so-called moon landing was a plasma physicist. They were into plasmas. And also, the modern astronomy is now talking about the plasma ocean above the Earth's magnetic field, and it's sentient. So that's
Yeah,
sort
it's a
of
sentient ocean. It is. It's for sure, Miles. It for sure is a sentient ocean, and it's written specifically more in detail in Vedic. So if you look into Vedic cosmology, the inner worlds that we're connected to is sun worlds of ocean, right? So each star, each sun out there is a river of plasma coming to and from. And that makes a confluence of a big plasma ocean of the universe. All the stars and suns make a big confluence into one big ocean of and I feel from my own experiences the Akasha network is that because as sentient life throughout the cosmos, depending on the power of their thoughts and manifestations, particles start to interact and attract one another and start to bang together and start to manifest and create things. Planets were formed from thought. Everything is formed from thought throughout the universe, and the particles in the plasma waves in space are meant for thought to generate life. It Everything that's coming from the sun has to do with creation, evolution, sustenance, and dissolution. Everything has to
This is
do with
very
that. And
important because we are being manipulated in our thoughts with fear by these parasites, which is very, very important in terms of what you're talking about.
well,
So
that's what keeps us in this
this
lower
whole thing
swamp.
is so relevant.
Yeah, we're in a lower swamp dimension. Yeah, we're the third dimension is a very swampy realm, right? As you get higher in frequency, in octaves, it gets more clear, more serene, more vivid, more alive, right? That's why when you leave your sort of like leaving your body in a way at night when you dream, you're in a higher dimension, in so to say. When you come back from that, right? When you have what's called sometimes as a psychic dream or a dream that you retain information, when you come back from that dream, it feels like what you just left was more vivid, more alive, more real than this reality, right? As you get higher, it gets more clean and more serene. It gets very swampy in this realm. We have literally a net, a net around this realm, around this earth of not just technology, but of greed, of materialism. We manifested light in a way in on this physical realm in 1879. If you look into theosophy and some of the people that emerged from theosophy like Rudolf Steiner, he talks about in 1879 we went into a new phase that he called the age of Archangel Michael. We actually mispronounce Michael. It's supposed to be Mikael, that word, and that holds weight and power when you say it. There's a reason why even society has programmed us not to say it the right way. Like saying my original name Raphael, that's like saying Raphael as Raffle, the way we say Michael. It's supposed to be Mikael, just like you say Raphael, and that
But
holds
it's the
very.
pronunciation of those words and the sounds that we produce is so important.
Its sound sustains the cosmos. It's what makes everything move and evolve and sustain and everything. It's sound is everything. Electrical currents, magnetism, and sound is everything within the cosmos. And you see, we literally have an orchestra going on from the sun right around our planet. Right around our planet. I don't want to jump around too much, but right around our planet, we have chorus waves going on right from the plasma. When they call it an electron-driven chorus, right? And you find this in all through mythology, Miles, right? So you have very sacred birds that are in mythology: woodpeckers, hoopoo birds, cuckoo birds, right? All these birds have to do with solar deities, right? And have to do with cosmic clouds. Now, the magnetosphere around Earth is a plasma, a whirling vortex of plasma that's shaped by the ramming force of our solar wind, right? So usually these electrons that get sent on these magnetic lines from the sun in these loops that are like ankhs, which we'll get into, right? These loops that come, coronal mass ejection loops, they come from the sun, right? And then usually most of that stuff, electrons bounce off our magnetic shield. But some of them, when they get caught in our magnetic shield around Earth, those electrons, they sing and chirp like certain birds. Right before dawn, sounds just like the hoopoo bird, the cuckoo bird, the woodpecker. And these birds generate a certain frequency, just like the sounds in the magnetosphere that help the plant cell's stomata open, that makes plants grow and be abundant. It's an orchestra of the universe. So the sun is literally sending electrons that make a chorus within the plasma waves around Earth that birds mimic these sounds right before dawn, an hour before dawn. It helps plants grow. And they call it a electron-driven chorus waves within the plasma.
I have
And
to
they talk
say
about it
that
in all the mythology.
there's a physicist called Valentina Zarkova, and she's done a huge amount of research on the energy fields coming from the sun, and there's critical things happening in this at the moment, and it's part of a masterclass that we did with her a couple of years ago. But when I
I'd like to
look at
talk to
all the
her.
wavelengths and all the charts of energy fields coming from the sun, to me, It looks like a song.
It is
It
a
looks
song.
like it's actually singing.
It is a song. It is a
So
song,
for
and they
you to
put it
say
so.
that is absolutely. I mean, we're looking at a completely looking at this from a completely different aspect.
And
It's
Miles, look, they're giving it to you right in front of you, right in mythology. Look when you go to Callanish, the stone circle in Callanish in Scotland, right? One of the most amazing mythologies that go along with it in lores is on summer solstice. The Shining One walks up the avenue of stones, heralded by the cuckoo's call. All right? So the cuckoo's call is the very sounds of the electrons in the magnetosphere around Earth. The Shining One is, of course, the sun. It's walking up the avenue of stones, heralded by the sound of the chorus it makes. And that spot, Kalanish, is a spot where there's openings in the magnetic shield. You have auroras there throughout the year. That's a spot where it's literally open right there. It's a
this is
doorway.
amazing because only 6 months ago, a brilliant woman called Gwendolyn came
Yes, I
here.
know who
She
she
wrote an
is. Jones.
extremely beautiful, detailed book, and I've got a copy of it here. And
I
Kalanish
have it
keeps
too.
coming.
I have the book. I
Yes,
have the book here. Yep.
this
Yep.
is
I'd love to
not a
talk to her.
coincidence that we're talking like this.
I'd like to talk to her actually, Gwendolyn, because she had a psychic experience there in the 1980s, and then later on in 2017 or 18, that she said she was the fire of the cuckoo's call came to her, and that literally has to do with the plasma physics of the sun. The sun is just it's the god of all the ancient cultures, and it's when you see the ancient gods holding the Ankh loop. Here, I'll show you with share screen. So
This is
this right
absolutely
here.
wonderful because meeting her again uh, here in the UK was absolutely amazing. So this is
So here, Miles. Yeah, I would
okay.
love to. So see, this is a from NASA Goddard. This is a coronal flare mass ejection loop that comes from the sun. You could see it's a loop, right? And these come in magnetic field lines of electrons that go all the way, they go past Earth. They go past our solar system. The solar wind carries these things. And you can see this is in ancient Vedic, right? So what you see here is a artistic rendition of the solar deity Varuna. Now, Varuna is the god of the ocean, but when you look more deeply into it, he's the god of the solar ocean, not the ocean on Earth. It is the solar ocean. And you see, he's traveling on a crocodile. Now, the solar ocean is a very swampy ocean of particles going towards our swampy third dimension. So, of course, you're going to have symbolism within an adept or a spiritual initiate would recognize this, that a crocodile rules the swamp. He's literally riding the ruler of the swamp to our swampy world, riding on the coronal mass ejection loop. When you see a solar deity with many arms, that is the whirling vortex of the sun. Each different arm is holding a different attribute, weapon, or technology of the sun. So right here, you see he's literally carrying the water jug. He's carrying a coronal loop. And this is all over Vedic. Ganesha is another solar deity. You see he's holding the coronal mass ejection loop. The more, and they show it right here. This is called the Pasha in Vedic, or the Varuna Pasha. Now, Miles, they give the most spiritual, incredible, scientific, and spiritual fused together description of this. If you look into the description of the Pasha in Vedic, it's talked about as a golden noose coming from the sun that lassos souls and pulls them into the celestial waters. Now, that is the most incredible description of a coronal loop and giving it spiritual significance as well. That it literally is lassoing souls and pulling them into the solar ocean. Really incredible. And you see it here all over. And when you see it on going down from Vedic to ancient Egyptian here, you'll see this is from the Cairo Museum. So this is from the Cairo Museum. As people see, Akhenaten, this is a papyrus. And you see, Akhenaten is now a solar king. Remind you, solar king. So he's harnessing solar plasmic energies. And you have literally the arms of the sun from the sunspots, where these come from, an Ankh being handed down, a coronal mass ejection loop being literally handed down from the arm of the sun to the solar deities. And it seems that he's even offering up, the little one is offering itself up to the coronal mass ejection loop. Now, these might be opening up doorways in our magnetic shield for souls to travel on. Now, I know from my own ancestry, I was born still inside the caul. It's spelled Caul. It's an amniotic sac that many babies born that way experience high sensitivity, high vibrations, higher sensitivities to certain things. I was born this way, and I was, because of my ancestry and many people in the past being born that way, I was told as a young kid that I have to be careful of certain vibrations and things like this that are around me. And at a very young age, I started to experience things on a deeper level than most people. And it's a bad and good thing. I'm very sensitive to certain things. So when I get into researching a certain topic, I get spiritually almost guided to do it, and I receive a deeper imprint than most people about these things. So I think I was literally guided here to help direct souls in the afterlife and in this life to more of, not just towards a spiritual way of life, but to their back to their cosmic journey, because we're trapped on this planet. We're not just trapped on this planet through greed and materialism. We're literally trapped on this planet because of the magnetic shield and because of our connection being lost to our spiritual origins.
But that shield is now moving quite dramatically and reducing a lot by 25% or so. So that has an important, I would imagine that has a great effect on us.
Yeah, I think it's a very dynamic landscape that is like it's not just protection for our planet. It's a very dynamic. It's a gate for souls. It's a gateway for souls, and it's talked about all over. Unfortunately, when we in the late 1800s, when we started translating some of these places that we were never supposed to have access to. Remember, these ancient writings, they were meant for spiritual initiates and adepts, not for the average academic or scholar. So when you have a lot of these ancient writings being translated by scholars and academics, they might be able to translate what the word means, but not the spiritual
We've
significance.
had been very greatly misled by our science for the last 120, 50 or
And it becomes
years.
dogmatic. How is that science? They get a certain theory that spins the stick, and it becomes like dogma. That's not
Yes,
science.
science is no longer science. It is a dogma. It's called scientism. And if you
Yeah.
don't obey the high priest of science, you get burned at the proverbial metaphysical stake.
Yeah, I have a friend from the UK. He's actually originally from Sri Lanka. He's a very famous astrologer. I mean, astronomer. I've been interviewing him for many, many years, and we talked throughout the year. His name's Professor Chandra Wickramansingh.
Yes.
He's he's in his 80s now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working on and off with him for years about some of my work as well. He'll agree with me on pretty much most of the stuff I'm talking about. So it's not literally woo woo. I use a spiritual side to things, but it's the way of the cosmos, right? It's science and spirituality is fused together. And unfortunately, Professor Chandra has faced the same thing with him talking about life coming from comets and bacteria's moving around. So he's faced dogmatic beliefs within science.
Well, I think
You're
a
supposed to
lot
be
of
able to admit
scientists
you're
have to
wrong.
box clever. They have to be very careful. I mean, Isaac Newton discovered that it wasn't gravity that was the force; it's the electric fields. That's a completely different type of physics. So on the one hand,
Yeah,
so a lot of academics have to box clever. Otherwise, it's like the fourth law of thermodynamics. You have the normal first three laws, but the fourth law of thermodynamics is thou shalt not lose thy funding.
that's so true, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't realize you can even look on NASA and places like that. Plasma is another stage of matter. It's another stage on our journey in evolution as well. Like you got solid, liquids, gases, you got plasma. It's the fourth stage of matter. And it's all over mythologies. It almost and I feel I had a near death experience in 1987, and it took me, Miles, over 20 years to figure out actually what I experienced during that and where I was in that experience. I try to explain it different ways, but until I started, um, I have about I guess like a senior undergraduate level in plasma physics. I've been researching it for about 4 or 5 years to be able to, uh, you know,
something
I
did
could show you all
something
the
did
books. I've
happen
been
in
going through it.
1987. There was a major events for myself in 1987. But what happened? Was there some kind of astrological issue, or was there some special alignment in
Well,
1987?
there was in August 1987. I had this my near
This
death
fits all my
experience.
timescales personally for me as well.
Yeah, there wasn't. See, I was 10 years. I was nine turning 10. I'm born 1978, right? So in 1987, there was a harmonic type of convergence in August of 1987 that people were like gathering at Mount Shasta and all this stuff. All where
Was this the
everybody
Jupiter
thought.
thing? They thought Jupiter was going to ignite or something?
I don't remember exactly, but there was a convergence. There was another one on in 2020 in December of 2020 or 2021 with the Saturn Jupiter. I have it up on my website. But there was a convergence in August of 1987. Right after that is when I had my near death experience in September, and they basically had to operate on me to save my life. So I had a bad accident playing sports. They had to operate on. I'll give you the run through. Basically, I was playing pretty high level soccer at that age. I played year round soccer, and that's not typically normal in the States because we play all these other sports, baseball, this and that. But I was with what they call a travel team. So for my year, I was on the 1978 Sting, where in the Hudson Valley of New York, you have all the best kids from that county on one team. They would play the other counties and different stuff like that. So I was like on the team where all the best kids from my county were on that team. So it was pretty high level. And we were playing these Irish immigrant, American immigrant kids were really scrappy kids. And we weren't used to this kind of play. They were very scrappy kids, used to being outside in shorts in the winter, just kicking the ball around, very elbowy and just very wiry, scrappy kids. And we weren't used to that type of play. And they were bullying us. And I was the sweeper on the team, and my coach made me stay to their center forward and give him a hard time. So it came to a point where he was about to kick on the goal. I jumped in front of him. He was kicking with all his might, and not only did the ball, but his foot went into my crotch. It cracked my cup in half and had ruptured my testicle. So I was laying on the floor. They called the ambulance. The ambulance was taking too long. My parents threw me in the car. On the way to the hospital, I'm telling my dad in the car, I don't want to take my pants down in the hospital. I'm fine. I'll be, you know what it's like to get hit in the balls. You'll be fine in
Yeah.
10 minutes. You know what I mean? So my dad brings me home. I fall asleep. That was Sunday night. The next day was school, Monday morning. I wake up. I don't even remember going to school, Miles. They told me what happened is that I guess my testicle had spun around each other. It ruptured. A black tissue was forming in my left testicle,
Oh God. Yeah.
and it was cutting off blood flow or oxygen, whatever. And basically, they had to cut the black tissue out, remove it, or I would have basically died. So
People don't
I don't
understand the
even,
amount of. Yeah.
yeah, I don't even remember going to school. I don't even remember going on the bus. What I remember is right before I woke up on the operating table. Now, they said I was walking to school on my way to class and I blacked out. That's what they said. So what I remember, Miles, is about there's no time frame when you're in even dreams. You don't know how, but it felt like just a minute or two before I woke up. Now I remember hovering over my body in the hospital room, looking like literally looking down on myself in the hospital room, barely recognizing myself, seeing my arms spread out like this and my legs spread out with people between my legs working on me. Looked like I was giving birth, literally. And I'm looking down at myself, and I made like I didn't say it out loud, but I made this conscious choice. I was like, "Oh, that doesn't look good. I don't want to go back. Like I don't want to go back to that. It looks like it hurts." Like I made a choice to like that. I didn't want to go back to that pain. The second I made that choice, I went as fast as you can imagine going. Like like it was a split second. Well, like and you see everything below you leaving Earth. Literally like a Google Earth, like you're leaving Earth. I left Earth. I'm outside of Earth, looking down on Earth, and in front of me is, like on a hot summer day when you see like a shimmering wave in the air. You can almost see like it's a shimmering wave in the air on a hot summer. That was in front of me in space. It looked like water, but it was moving, right? Almost like a tube, but right in front of me. I was explaining it. If you go back in some of my videos, I was explaining it as maybe a crystal structure or a tube of water. I didn't understand the plasma part of it until several years ago. So I saw this shimmering tube of water in front of me that I just like moved into with my arms and saying I never left that position that I was in on the hospital table. I was in this position the whole time. I moved into that water, that shimmering wave inside of it. While I was inside of it, it was like every molecule and fiber of my being was being analyzed, judged, weighed. Not judged in the sense of like, what can a 9-year-old be getting judged about? It was more like every molecule of my existence was being scanned and in one fluid state. Like, and it was like plurality of knowledge all at my fingertips for a moment going through this water, right? Just all around me. And I couldn't pick out any one thing, but I knew it was a bunch of knowledge. I could sense it, right? And I had the best way I describe it is that I was in this watery wave and I was leveling myself out in it like a bubble in a carpenter's level. And the minute I leveled myself out in it very straight and I was perfectly level in it, I awoke up on the operating table in that very same position and I was really upset. Really upset. I was upset because I felt like they were lying to me because I asked them where they just took me out of. I was just in water. You had me in a tank. Where was I? At a tank in space? What that like what was going on? They're like, no, you were dreaming, you were unconscious, you're okay now, blah, blah, blah. Not only that, I was pissed off that I was in here because I just left something that was so alive, so knowledgeable, so vivid, all this knowledge, and then I was back here and in pain. And I was pissed. It took me weeks to even snap out of it because I was upset that I was back here. I was upset that I experienced and everything I just left that was so alive, so vivid. I was upset and I felt like people were lying to me about what I experienced. And I got to tell you, that was one of the most significant events of my life that has stuck with me and made me research the ancient writings and such a deep level for all these years. I don't even go to the bathroom to go to the bathroom without taking books with me. I mean, I literally am on a mission. You know, all the time. I take my daughter to the park. I got books with me. I'm always trying to find out more answers about the truth, about what I experienced. And it took me many, many years. And I literally think I was in a region of our magnetosphere
It's funny,
after death.
but it's some one of the key things that we did in well, again, this is my experience, was a lot of the key people that were involved with I was doing were what I call bounce backs. They'd had some kind of an experience like that where they'd gone and they came back. So this is
Yeah, and a lot of people have asked, do you think there were? Because afterwards, I significantly changed. Like I started playing guitar. Just knew how to play it. I was better at certain things. I was smoother, like when I would talk to girls and different people, adults. I talked to adults differently after this. Like you know, girls in school, everything. Like my personality changed. I changed. It wasn't. And many years, maybe people have said maybe there was a walk-in. I don't think there was a walk-in. I think that things activated me in me that was previously sleeping. It awakened things in me,
you
and it
became
took
a
me.
full adult with a wider knowledge and perspective.
But it took me many years to figure it out because after that moment, I went through a lot of years as a teen troubled. It took me many years, like partying, hanging out with friends, you know, leaving home, doing all that stuff. It took me until my early 20s to really start to find my path because I tried to run from it. Because after that, I was way more sensitive than I even was as a kid. See, as a kid, I was already sensitive. My mom would be like, you know, my family is very old school Italian, so like my mom's was a hardcore lady, you know. So if she said it was 9 o'clock and you got to go in bed and go to sleep, you had to shut all the lights out, go to sleep, and that's it. If I was like spiritually charged up, playing with my toys, running around, I would be very, very spiritually charged up. My mom would tell me go in the room and shut your lights out, and faces would come out sometimes to me. I would hear sometimes even my name or some things being called, and so I was being already things were coming out as a young age. And then you know, I had certain experiences as a young age too with certain things like, but after I was 9 years old it was intensified dramatically. And there was a point where I thought I was having a neurological issues. I was a smart kid. So I thought maybe there could be something wrong with my brain because certain times I was starting to leave body and not know it. And I was fighting it, Miles, and not real. I thought I was having neurological issues. Certain times when I would be really tired, I would lean back and it would feel like I never sat in the chair, that I fell into it. And I would hear like that. It would be like everything closing in on me. And it felt like that I needed to scream for help, but I couldn't muster the scream out of my throat. And it felt like that if I didn't shake my head, that I was gonna die or I would get stuck like that forever because it would be like, wah, and I would have to like yell my way out of it. Like I would be stuck.
I know what you're talking about there.
Yeah. And so eventually one day I was just so tired, I didn't fight it and I gave into it. And I was in another place for a split second. I saw literally a big, huge dragon face look at me. And then my mom was like, time to eat or something like that. And I snapped back out of it. So that was happening a little bit here and there when I was a kid. As I got into adolescence, that started to go away. But after that near death experience, I was literally starting to go out of body and not even realize I was fighting it, thinking I was having some sort of neurological issue going on. You know, crazy. But I come from a long line from Italy that are called strega or benindante. These are mystics on the light side. There's the malandante and the benindante. See, the
Explain all
malandante.
that. This is fascinating.
Um, well, the Benindante are people that in not just in dream time travel during certain times of the years. We call them the Ember Days. Now, these are the solstices and the equinoxes where certain people will at night they will literally their souls will leave their bodies in a way and they will travel to the realm outside of Earth, and there will be spiritual warfare that determines the crops of the year, babies being born that year, whether they will be, good or bad, like mutated or not, things like that. It has to do with the light and the dark. And the Benedante were there to cleanse the collective consciousness of their communities and their families and the people around them. And the Malandante were there as the ones that are taking energy from people, making spells, you know, uh, sucking life force from people to get more powers. That's where the word strega actually comes from, the Latin term strix, which means screech owl, because at night the evil ones, the Malandante, would be traveling in the astral, sucking the life force from others. So just like the owl flies at night nocturnally in complete silence, snatches its prey without even making a sound, right? That's the same way the astral witches travel. So my ancestry actually goes all the way back to Giordano Bruno and beyond. So Giordano Bruno is an ancient ancestor of mine. My aunt Lori Bruno, who's in her 80s now, she still
So
does the
explain
same.
that. Explain who that person is or was.
So in 1600, he was burned at the stake for not saying he. They basically wanted him to say that the Earth was the center of anything, and he was saying that there was numerous suns out there, numerous solar systems with life on them, and all of that. And because he said this, and because some of his work in the occult and things like this, they locked him in a dungeon for many, many years. And every year they would bring him out, and be like, all right, you ready to admit that we're right and you're wrong? And he would be like, no. So they put him back in the dungeon. Finally, they stripped him naked, brought him in front of the town. And he's only a guy 5'2", 5'3". They strip him naked and put him on a stake in front of the whole town. But he was the giant there in front of. They were scared of him. He wasn't scared of them, right? And he
What
he
what sort
stood.
of time was this? When did Galileo and those guys? I mean, it was very dangerous to say anything that wasn't
Yeah, but
allowed.
Giordano Bruno was in 1600 when he was burned at the stake. But not, I mean, there's been times in history where it's okay and then it's not okay. Look in the 1690s in in America and all over. They were burning witches. And then not too long, 100 years later, the spiritualist movement is everywhere. People are having seances on their everywhere and all of that. So it's times goes through different stages, and I think it has to do with
I mean, a friend
different
of mine
different
just
ways.
come back from southern France and the Cathars. Was that a sort of similar time?
Yeah, yeah, they were exterminated, the Cathars. Yeah, they were French, right? The
Yeah,
Cathars, they were yeah, I
and
love some of
they
their.
just burned everybody and says, "Let God decide."
Yeah, the Cathars have some beautiful, like almost like Gregorian type chant music that is amazing. Yeah, they have beautiful frequencies to
But
that
was that a
music. I've heard some.
similar era?
Yeah, similar era, definitely. I got to research more into the Cathards, but were they what time period were they?
That's what I'm not too sure. But
They're
it's,
more
I
than
mean,
they're
this
like a Gnostic.
persecution, I think, is sort of almost coming back to us almost.
Yeah, they're more of a Gnostic, I think, group, the Cathars. But yeah, I mean, in see my Italian line, we believe that in the 1300s, there was a woman called Aradia di Toscano, Aradia of Tuscany. They also called her Bella Pellegrina, the beautiful pilgrim. And she had this experience when she moved from Tuscany to Lake Nemi, which is like right outside of the Vatican. This is where my family comes from in Italy. So we come from that same area. So it's like a sort of like she was looked at as almost like a Hindu avatar. Like she came here to bring back the old ways and teach the old ways to the peasants and the pilgrims in the area. And she was hunted down by the Vatican in the 1300s. And they took her special scrolls and they imprisoned her, and then an earthquake had hit her prison, and they don't know whether she died or some say she escaped to Serbia at the time. So there's a revivals of the old ways because people are always going to have these experiences. People are always going to have a moment of a plurality of worlds where they're able to connect to the higher vibrations of our existence. It's it's just harder and harder nowadays because of our technology that we're working with
Yes,
is a
this technology is
replication.
extremely dangerous, very bad.
Yep, and it's cutting us off from who we really are. You know, we're at the
Deliberately,
cusp.
it's not by accident.
No, we're at the cusp of losing our humanity. In very near future, you're going to see bacterias and bacilli taking on frightening new forms that are going to change who we are. And these bacterias, they emerge from the spiritual realms, right? Have you ever seen what a bacteriophage looks like?
Now, explain it.
Bacteriophage is hold on, let me share screen for you.
I think that's something that they mentioned in Star Trek Voyager, the
It's
phage.
basically the biggest destroyer of our universe because it eats about 40% of the Earth's bacteria. I mean, the ocean's bacteria every day. It's in our guts as well. It can heal you or destroy you. It's hold on, let me show you. Do I have yes. So this is a bacteriophage. This is what clings to E. coli cells and it actually transfers DNA. So in the head right here, is where it carries the genetic material right here. So they call it horizontal gene
Is that an
transfer.
actual photograph, or is it graphics a graphical
Yeah, it's a
representation?
graphics because they can't actually they're so small. I don't think they can actually get the exact photograph of them, but you can look it up. This is what a bacteriophage the shape is and it's an icosahedral structure on the head, then the long tail, and then of course this is the things that crawl and then it has the injectors. And it'll attach itself to a host cell and inject genetic material without a parent or an offspring. It's a replicator and it can literally heal or destroy. It can also transfer DNA. Now I found these also amazingly on the Tartar and Mongol drum skins. Now this is a drum skin from the ancient Tartar and Mongols. You can see this here. Now when you ask the shaman where these magic drum skins are used for, they'll say they are used to torment or heal the targeted individual that they start beating the drum towards. So I literally think that the ancient shaman know how to direct the course and the activities of these bacteriophages within the gut of individuals. And look, they even have cells, open cells, humans here. They might even be showing horizontal gene transfer with this horizontal line and all of this. And of course, these look exactly like bacteriophages. Look at these. They even have little bacteria looking things here. Look at all of
Well, they
this.
also look like human beings, like
Yeah, they
aliens,
look, but
dancing around.
what kind of human being, has that weird kind of icosahedral or octagon type head with a long cone here and then these types of legs? How many humans look like that? Because they clearly are showing what human beings look like here. Those stick figures.
Yes.
These structures are way different than that. These structures look exactly like a bacteriophage. And you could see That's something different. That's from Anthony Perrott. This is a plasma model of Anthony Perrott and how it looks like a southwestern glyph. That's something different. But this, you can see, I think that they're talking about this not only in these Mongol and Tartars, but in ancient Egyptian staffs. You see a very crude form with the those legs at the bottom with the ancient Egyptian staffs. So they might be talking about this in all sorts of ancient writings, and that we just don't know because you're not a spiritual initiate or adept. I think that people like that have like myself and various people that are into this, possibly you and other people listening, we have somewhere in our genetic memory the imprint of a spiritual initiate or adept.
And of course,
And when
the so-called the parts of DNA which are I don't junk, what they call junk DNA. The whole point of DNA is it's resonant. It reacts to a song of some kind.
Yeah. And it all has to do with viruses. If you look in our junk, so-called junk DNA, there's like a graveyard of ancient viruses in there. That's what makes us evolve. And it all comes from bacterias, and bacterias aren't just bad for you, they're good for you too. They
Which is
make
why when people have a disease of some kind, it's the body actually creating it, which is where the whole
yeah,
vaccine thing
yeah,
becomes
yep, for sure.
an
The
issue.
the Great Pyramid of Egypt is in that same pattern as the bacteriophage. The Great Pyramid is made in a icosahedral pattern. Same pattern as that head of the bacteriophage. It's an icosahedral structure. You'll see each side of the Great Pyramid splits down the middle, and each corner is a pyramid, a triangle pyramid of its own. It's an icosahedral structure.
I think some people have suggested or said that the pyramids are not four sides; they're eight because
Yeah,
it's
it's
like each side is
icosahedral.
divided into a slightly. There's a
Yep.
slightly different angle there.
Yep, for sure it is. And I literally think it's meant to absorb cosmic radiation, bacterias, everything that's coming from space and inject it into the earth. It's an ancient genetic plant, cosmic DNA.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting when you say all that the spike protein may be purged from the rest of the body, but it's living. It's got into the bacterial gut bacteria
Yeah,
in our fundamental buildup.
for sure, for sure. You start to see in the ancient writings more of the bacterial genetics and plasma physics the more you look into it. And you start to see advanced sciences many thousands of years ago that we're only coming into today. And I've been doing this for almost 3 decades now. I'm 40. I'll be 46. I've been starting research in the ancient writings when I was a teenager. So over those 30 years, I've been wrong for many of them. It's only recently that I started to realize, because if you would have asked me 5 years ago what the Ankh or the Pasha from Hindu meant, I would have said something different. I would
So,
have been
what would
wrong.
you have said? What's different to what you would have said 5 years ago? Because there's been talk about the Ankh and why they hold them and
Yeah,
a lot of that.
I
So, what have you found out which is different?
well, like I said, there when I believe when you see even in Sumerian when you see the Anunnaki bird-winged Anunnaki holding a pine cone and they have the basket with the handle on it.
Yeah, the pine cone is extremely important in terms of. There's a guy called Mike Emery talks about this, and that's what the pineal gland and all that sort of stuff is. This, and you see these symbols in buildings, pine cones and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I think the pine cone is representing the knowledge that it's actually bringing to the species. But the winged creature, the bird creature, has to do with solar stellar information and the solar wind carrying it, the flight of the solar wind. That loop, that handle on the basket, represents the coronal loop and the waters, the cosmic waters that it's carrying. The same thing when you have a deity like an Egyptian deity holding the Ankh. The deity is representing the sun. It's a solar deity, and the sun is carrying the coronal mass ejection towards its intended target. It's carrying it. It's literally that's what it does. Coronal mass ejection is sent from the sun as a loop, as a coronal loop, and it's not just it's bringing information from the sun. It's not just electrons, it's information from the sun. It's also opening up doorways of light through the magnetic shield for souls to travel on and things like that. So also, when you have structures of granite, like this is where my connection with Maria Wheatley comes in pretty well as well, because we've been working with
Explain
dolmens.
all that. Explain. This is fascinating.
You know, granite is a very important material. You have high quantities of quartz crystal in it. You got high quantities of magnetite in it. And when you have natural locations where there's either water running underground or fault lines or energetic lines where natural shocks and vibrations are generated, right? That is literally squeezing, compressing the quartz within the granite. That opens up a doorway of light, right? When you have cold plasma light, right? When I take two pieces of quartz right here, shut out the lights, right? When I take two pieces of quartz, if I rub them together, you're gonna see cold
Yes.
light generated. See sparks? Did you see the sparks?
Yes.
Yeah. So
What some people call it maybe a piezoelectric effect. So,
piezoelectric. It's cold plasma light. It's cold light. So if you have something that is high quantities of quartz inside of it, right, and you have a toroidal energy around it, or somewhere where there's natural shocks and compression, vibration, it opens up a doorway of light. So it's literally opening up a bridge of light from there to the sun, right? The sun it's having an alignment at certain times of the year, winter solstice alignments and things like that with the sun. So you're literally opening up a doorway of light to be a bridge from the sun to that location, right? So that's an information traveling right from the sun right to that location, doorways, right? And when you have a dolmen where it's red granite or granite like that, and it's lifted off the ground, you have the negatively charged ground, the positively charged atmosphere. So it's like lifting a guitar string off of the fretboard where it can vibrate and resonate the cosmic energy that it's harnessing and pulling in, right? So certain spots that have magnetic anomalies on them also have dolmens on them of red granite, right? You have one right here in North Salem, New York called the Balanced Rock. This is my website where I have it.
which is why they put all the churches on these rocks. That's what a church is. It's kirk. It's a church.
Oh
A
yeah, the
rock.
church has taken all of them. Even like
And
where
that's where the altar's there and all that.
yeah, when you go to like France, where the Notre Dame cathedrals, I mean, they used to have temples to Cernunnos
Well,
and
it used
and
to.
all,
Notre Dame was on the former temple of Isis.
well, there's like a pillar to Cernunnos down there too. Uh, I'm pretty sure it's that. So this is my website. This is a free website of information. I
Yes,
also make
do
my own
explain
copper.
what your YouTube sites are and what your
Yeah, well,
videos
so
are,
this is
and we could
this
do
is a
that.
red granite dolmen. I'll give you guys all that. This is a red granite dolmen in North Salem, New York. That's me standing next to it, of course. This is on a magnetic anomaly. This is called the Balanced Rock. Now, I don't know if you guys can notice here, but this also looks like the Egyptian god Sekhmet. You have the eye here, the nose, the mouth, the hairline. Let me show you guys what I mean. So that's the Egyptian god Sekhmet, the side profile, and then you see this stone here, and then
Yes.
you could see the ears the same, the cheek line, everything. On the other side, it's a completely different looking dolmen. So it transforms on this side. Now, this is built on a minus 400 gamma magnetic anomaly. The magnetic anomaly comes out from all directions underneath. Originally, they were calling this a glacial erratic, saying that 10,000 or so years ago, the Ice Age just plopped this here. But now they admit that it's a Celtic or some sort of ancient dolmen. This has been featured on Ancient Aliens recently. I have been going to this spot since the 1980s, since I'm a kid. So it's not far from my house. On winter solstice morning, the sun sits right on top of Sekhmet's head, like you see here. I do believe that these things that you see here is representing the solar disk with the snake or naga plasma waves that come from the sun. This plasma moves like snakes. The electrons move like the electricity moving through the plasma is like snakes, literally. So that's definitely, in my opinion, what they're describing there. And you guys can see on winter solstice, I'll show you how the sun
I
sits
mean, the
right on top.
question is, how did they know that that did what it did?
Well, that's where
How did they
dowsing in
perceive it? They
ancient.
didn't have meters or anything like that. So how
Well,
did they
that's where
how did they
dowsing.
perceive that?
That's where dowsing and ancient shaman come in. A lot of intuitives, they can literally, shaman can walk up on a spot and put a flag where the right location is, or where a certain location is that the earth energy vortex needs to be worked with. On this spot, it's my opinion that it's anchored right there. It's anchored on a multi-dimensional vortex of energy right at this spot. And it's a condensed energy location. I've had psychic experiences, telepathic experiences at this spot. I think this literally releases condensed energy, and it has to do with stripping the hydrogen molecules. That when the water and snow comes on the stone, it like strips those molecules, and the rest raises up. It's like condensed energy being taken out of it. There's a lot going on. There's literally a surge of electrons that happen at dawn and at dusk at this location. And on nightfall, orbs show up because of the plasma light. I'll show you. So this is at nightfall of the location. Let me go further down. That's the magnetic anomaly chart. This was measured by John Burke, and I got permission to use it by his co-author, Kaj Halberg. That's the magnetic anomaly at the location, so you guys can look. Here's the plasma or light orbs that you could see. It happens right at dawn. I mean, right at dusk. Right at dusk, you can see all the orbs that start surrounding this location. Right as the sun starts going down for the day, you could see the orbs appear. And then this is the
What do you
crystal.
suggest the orbs are?
I think it's information. It's information. It's information. Electrons. Electrons have all sorts of information that affect us. You can lean against a tree and get some electrons. You can go outside and get electrons. You know, all sorts of things give you electrons. We need electrons. When I make my copper products, what happened? When I make my copper products, I lost it. It's like getting a fresh explosion of electrons. So let me show you what I mean with my copper products. I hope we're not jumping around too much. See, I bring my crystal skulls to the site and charge them as well. I do crystal skull readings and things like that. But you could
What
see
what
on
what is a crystal skull? Is it a crystal which looks like a skull, or is it a piece of glass that's been molded into it? I mean, what's the difference there?
no, it's very, very ancient crystal. So this one is Himalayan smoky quartz
Yeah.
that has been carved into a crystal skull. And I have all sorts of crystals that are, some of them small, some of them human size. Uh, it's like a biocrystalline computer in a way. And when you carve a crystal or a stone into shape, it transforms its energy. So this one is a
Do you want to
15
stop
pound.
sharing just to show that again?
Oh wait. Oh yeah. Let me get the other one. This is actually a 15-pound human size orange calcite. This one.
Is it the
And
shape of the head which does it, or is there something
yes,
else in there?
every shape has power. Every shape has energy. So when you transform a crystal to a certain shape, it transforms the energy and power of the crystal and the information that you can access. So when you carve a crystal into the shape of a sentient being's skull, whether it's an elongated shape like this, or this is of natural citrine, this is the traveler. This is carved by Leandro de Souza, who's a master carver from Brazil. So when you transform it to either elongated skull or a skull like a human skull, it helps the human connect to cosmic energy. It helps our human physically and spiritually connect information from the computer of the crystal. It's like a cosmic computer, a biocrystalline computer in a way. And it not just collects information, it amplifies information. You could put thought forms within crystals as well. So usually within in the moonlight is where you actually access the crystal. So
Why
just
moonlight?
like
Is there what's the property of moonlight that would make that work better?
so the sun is usually where you charge the crystals. The moonlight is where you start to communicate with the crystal and access it. So just like your smartphone, like you have wherever you have valuable information, you're going to have a way to access that valuable information. So different places you put your hand on the skull will access different places of information, just like our head holds different places of information. And you'll have a special code, different way you touch it that will turn on the crystal to let you start to communicating with it. So also that other people won't be able to access it as well if they are able to get their hands on it. You'll have your own special code to shut it off and turn it on.
This is amazing.
There's so much we went through so much and bounced around a lot, but maybe next time we could focus on one
Yeah, I
one
think this is a
topic
very
or
good introduction. Been running for about an hour. If you do you want to, it's really this is
whatever
brilliant.
you want to do.
I'm so impressed by so much of your material
Thank you. I actually
because
make
it
my own
lines up with so many other things.
I make my own copper products. Not only do I wrap certain stones with copper, like this is silver with shungite, I also make the copper tensors. So this is a harmonizer. You'll see this is the same shape actually that supernova explosions explode. Even the magnetic field around Earth
Now
is the
you've
same.
got uh, copper wires wrapped around each other. Is that is I
This
mean,
is actually twisted copper, if you could see. So this is twisted clockwise. The copper that I'm wearing, silver that I'm wearing here is actually just a copper wire wrapped around a crystal, but this is actually twisted copper. So when this is cut from the royal sacred cubit measurement from ancient Egypt. Same with all my copper rings. These are copper rings. This one's made to fit around your smart electricity meter. So these are twisted copper. And I have my copper feedback loops, right?
now
So,
is that
and
copper got varnish on it? Is it or is it bare copper? I mean,
no, this is
would that
really expensive
tarnish?
copper. Yep, without tarnish. This is very expensive copper. You'll see if you get your hand. I'll send you something. I'll send you something as an example. I'll send you a free thing. So when you twist copper, this is cut from the royal sacred cubit. The way I can describe it so everybody can understand, when you have a normal piece of copper, you got a positive and negative pole within the copper, right? When you twist the copper clockwise, it's like taking a dirty rag and wringing out all the dirty. What you're wringing out is the dirty electrons. You're twisting it all out. You're wringing out all the dirty electrons. So it's just a positive charge within the copper, a positive explosion of electrons within the copper. And then you take the copper and make it into either a circle or a coil, right? So you have a continuous flow of energy, a constant explosion of fresh electrons that you're wearing either as a bracelet or you could put it over and then when you have it, make it an energy circle like that, you have, intuitives will be able to see sometimes a white light coming out right from the center of the circle. So if you have a stomach ache, you could put it over your stomach ache. And when you have a coil, I even make like the ancient triskelions,
Yes.
triple spot, so when you have a coil, it's a vacuum. It's sucking the negative energy in the one side and putting the positive energy back in through the other. So it's a constant removing negative and putting positive. It's a vacuum. We call these the AccuVac feedback loops right here. Slim Sperling in the 90s came up with some of these models. And then I sort of was inspired by him and then came up with some of my own. But we got all sizes of
So
the
how do you
harmonizers.
measure that it's working, or how do you know that's working? I mean, that's a heck of a lot of work. That
Yeah, yeah. Well, they have to be done right. First of all, we do cut them from the Royal Sacred Cubit. It's a little bit over 22 inches, and then you have twisting it clockwise is important, right? You have to twist it clockwise. You can use a drill to
yes,
twist some of these. All right, so you can use that to twist it for you, or you can use the vise, put it in the vise, and twist it clockwise.
I think a
But you
drill
could
would make it
sense,
a lot easier.
yeah. But with the normal wrapping crystals, I can actually, if you ever want to do a video of a tutorial, I could do a tutorial of showing
Yeah, well,
people
yeah.
how to.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could show them just to have to wrap their own crystals at home. Just crystals like this as well, or you can,
Now, is it
get them.
important how many turns you have on that?
That's a good question, actually. That's a good question. Some people like to do it by certain numbers. I like to do it like either in 9 or 8. Sometimes I'll use smaller loops, but everybody has their own. As long as it's a clockwise twist, I really don't think it matters unless someone is actually that intention means something
I
to
mean,
them. Some people
what I'm
actually,
thinking of, does it resonate at a particular frequency, or is it
yeah.
depend? Is it
So
dependent on the size of what you're using as a thing to wind it round? I mean, do these things matter?
it matters in octaves. I think that resonates in octaves better, like from like 72, 144, 432. Those 8 octaves that go up. So that's how I do it. At least I usually use the 432 hertz when I use frequency generators. So usually I have an orgone, a large orgone pyramid with the Rodin coil inside, and these are connected to
Now,
frequency
explain
generators.
all that. I've got my pyramid here. Hey, this is my pyramid here. I've got a few more of these.
Oh
This
yeah, I
was
like
done
that.
by a lady, a very nice lady in Las Vegas, and it's got copper on it and stuff. Some of these
Yeah,
are
so
just decoration, but this has got a lot of stuff in it.
some of them are more decoration. This is a power device. You guys can see it's a power device.
Have you seen Maria Wheatley's giant pyramid?
I don't know if I've seen the big one. She has a huge, huge one.
Yeah, she does. You've got actually
Yeah, so
light inside that.
yeah, this is powered. It has light inside of it, and it also connects to frequency generators. So I have the connection here where you can plug it into the frequency generator.
Now, how
Uh,
does the frequency generator work? What sort of things are happening with that?
I'll show you what a frequency generator. So I usually use 432 hertz sine waves from the frequency generator. Let me get one. You guys can buy them right at the store. I put a few together myself, but you guys can buy them like I think even online probably. So this is a frequency generator, just a normal one right here. You can either put them together too. I put this one
I
together.
mean, what type of generators are those? Can you select what different frequencies there are or what?
Yep, you could select whatever frequency, and this pyramid here has the cables running from the bottom
Right?
that go right into the frequency generator. So you could put whatever frequency there, 432 hertz, whatever,
Is it
144.
important that you get the right frequency, or would some
Yeah,
frequencies be harmful or not beneficial?
yeah. Some frequencies are harmful. Some frequencies are harmful. I think it depends on the person too. And there's some good guides out there. You guys look them up, like 880 hertz, 888 hertz. There's all different. Each frequency is said to do a
So,
different thing. But
if
yeah,
people wanted to get something like that, would they have
higher
to ask,
frequencies can
or
shatter
would
disease.
what would somebody have to, so they got the one that was going to be right by them or for them? Is there any particular things they would need to say or look for, or what?
Yeah, I would think people. Sometimes people resonate with certain color crystals. I would think that certain color crystals that you resonate even with your birthstone and things like that. I would, if people are looking to
In
protect
this,
themselves from the harmful radiations, I would use shungite pyramids.
I mean, it's the
Those
same
are
way that
really,
some people, one type of crystal is good for some people, but the same
yeah.
crystal would be bad for others. So I mean, how would they get the right one? How would they ask you to do something? I mean, if somebody wanted to get one of these things, what would they ask you, or what would they say to you for you to get it right?
Well, I do readings for people as well, so I could help people do it that, but mostly it comes with feel. If someone's not sure about what crystal, I would actually just go out to a crystal shop and just go around and ask and look around and see what catches your eye. Usually, your body will respond to what feels for you. You have certain likings, right? Certain tastes. That doesn't just come out of the ether. That's your body speaking to you, right? So when you choose certain colors to wear in the morning, there's a spiritual significance to that, right? So each day you wake up, you might feel that you need to work with turquoise today. Some day you wake up, you might feel like it's an aquamarine day, right? That's why there's all these different colors and tastes, because each day your energy will be different and it'll vibrate at a different color and a different frequency. Color, sound, frequency, light, all of this is very important. Very important. And different lights, different colors, different energies will come with different experiences. Even smells. There's certain crystal skulls that I use during a reading where not just me doing the reading, but I could be online with someone 1,000 miles away and they could smell the flowers in the room just like I'm smelling. A smell of flowers or some sort of smell will come out, right? So it's just
Is
every
that
day is
because
a
it's an energy which is stimulating you in your senses? You're not actually smelling something.
telepathic waves, man.
Yeah.
Telepathic waves, right? So Miles, when we referred early that we are using a replication of the technology we're working with, right? That's so true because nowadays, why be able to telepathically communicate with everybody when you could just group text them? You could just group instant message everybody, link them in a friggin' email, right? It takes hard work for us to be able to have a network of telepathic communication with people. We have to be comfortable with ourselves, our surroundings, who we are down to the very molecule of our existence, and our surroundings for us to be spiritually aware telepathically of other people. Once you start becoming aware of yourself and where you fit in the world, you can become telepathically aware of other people. Why people don't want to do that? Why would we want to put the hard work of living that sort of lifestyle in our today's world when they can just use their phone to text message everybody, right? So we're using a replication of what we should be doing.
Yeah, there's something to do with these phones where we're collapsing the quantum wave function and dragging our perceptions into 2D down.
Wow, that's a great way of putting it. That's a great way of putting it.
And I have to say, we're not entering a future which is beneficial to all those human
No,
talents.
no, I really don't. We're losing our individual pattern. Each one of us, we have our own individualized pattern of what makes us. Nowadays, we're letting everything else dictate our own pattern. Media, everything else is dictating the pattern of our existence.
Is there
You should
anything that we
never
could
let
do
anything,
to overcome
never
that?
let somebody else dictate your own pattern.
Okay, well, websites and how do people contact you and stuff like that?
Okay, yep, you can find me at themysticalspiralstore.com if you want my products or my crystals or my
Well,
copper.
whatever the people want.
Yep, themysticalspiralstore.com. I have a free information website at themysticalspiral.com. I have patreon.com/themysticalspiral, which for as low as $2 a month, you get the most incredible information and research. It's the best $2 you'll spend any month. And then I'm on Truth Frequency Radio every Saturday night
So
at
how do people hear that?
tfrlive.com. Tfrlive.com. Saturday night, 7 o'clock Eastern.
You're working hard, man.
Yep. And then I homeschool my daughter, and it's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. How are you doing? You've been on the Truth Crusade for many years.
Yes, I've been on it, shall we say, more years than I care to remember. I think that's what they say. The Basis Project. Well, this is fascinating. It's absolutely brilliant working with Maria. This is really wonderful,
Yeah, I
stuff
love
that we're
Maria.
talking about. And this is sort of an introduction. Well, I don't have a basis number on it yet, but we'll do more, and then focus on one particular thing. And
Wow. Yeah, my friend Rex Bear, he has a really popular YouTube Leak Project. You ever heard of Leak Project? It's like
yes,
got 400
yeah,
400,000. He just got demonetized out of nowhere. He's so pissed. He's selling
yeah.
furniture right now.
I think they may have found that that's been a big mistake from a business model point of view, but I wouldn't want to say too much more about that.
Yeah.
But okay, well, just for the dateline, we're the 4th of February here, 2024, and I'm very grateful for Maria Wheatley for referring to you. I just saw there a couple of hours ago, and had to rush back here,
Oh,
and as soon
awesome.
as
Tell her
my
I said
web
hi.
guy Thomas said, "Yeah, you got a message," just said, "Oh, blah, blah," so that sort of all hands to pumps. That was great. He's working really
Well,
hard on basistv.com to get that
wow.
just right.
She's a real one. I love Maria, man. So tell her I said hello, and she's doing important work. We worked together on a project with Richard Hoagland as well.
I think it's called Richard C. Hoagland.
Richard C. Hoagland. Yeah,
Yeah.
Richard C. Hoagland.
And you've always, when he mentions hyperdimensional, you've got to put a slight higher pitch on the Y, so it's hyperdimensional. That's me being ever so slightly sarcastic. Richard Hoagland's done a huge amount of work, and it's amazing, and he's been around a long time.
Yeah.
Anyway, good to see you, and we'll call this the end of part one, and we look forward to doing a part two and concentrate on certain things that you want to really get into. And
Thank you. It's been a
that's it
pleasure.
for now. And it's a goodbye from me. And
Thank you. Spiral out. It's been a pleasure.
good.